I have two, actually. I want to move the section S, unfinished business, after N, the superintendent's report, and move Q, public comment, after S. Are there any other modifications? Director Lodett? No? Okay. All right, thank you. And there were no pupil consent items, so we'll move on to item K, which is the student report.
Good afternoon, parents, students, community, board, and our superintendent. For today's report, we will be going over all City Council updates, all City Council events, as well as some community events.
So over this past weekend, we had a very successful youth fall retreat. Many students from various high schools showed up and showed out. We had 9 attending high schools, from Oakland Tech to Ojai to McClimates to Fremont, Met West, Skyline, Dewey, Ralph Bunche Academy, and certainly not least, Castlemont. Everyone, including the adult chaperones, were able to connect instantly, and it was a great experience, especially considering that it's Director Simmons and I last year on ACC. We were able to showcase leadership skills from all over OUSD, and beyond that, we were able to brainstorm so many different ideas to focus on for our school year. During our time at the retreat, our governing board presented our new priorities for the 2025 to 2026 school year: inclusion, career exploration, and nutrition. Inclusion was chosen to ensure that there is equitable and safe learning environment for those who may face exclusion for their disabilities, beliefs, personal identity, and/or interest. Our governing board led presentations from FLIP training course that we talked about in our previous student reports. After this presentation took place, students broke out into 3 different groups where they were given specific places that they had to design. They had to redesign it to make it more inclusive, whether that was widening doors for wheelchair mobility or making sinks and classrooms shorter for those that can't reach too high. It's the little things that not all of us have to think about, but just because it may not fit your personal life does not mean that it's not meant for anyone else and that it can't help someone else. The key takeaway from this training was that the world should always choose to be accessible and equitable for all. In reference to career exploration, students broke out into their school groups and they wrote down their concerns regarding their resources for further education. They also began brainstorming ways to improve their school site. They discovered that not all students even want to go to college, and if that's a choice that they make, how can they ensure that there are other opportunities and resources available at their extent to resource? We were very saddened to hear that smaller schools like Castlemont don't have a big college and career center like Oakland Tech. And why is that? These are the questions that students should be asking, because this is their future and they should be able to take charge of what is the district's responsibility to tie up these loose ends. During our discussion about nutrition, we were all shocked to find out that many sites revealed the lack of proper preparation and nutrition protocols in their school's breakfast, lunch, and even midday snacks. Dewey student representatives mentioned that there is no lunch lady. The principal puts out their food for all the students. That is an outrage, and if the board doesn't think that's a problem, then that's something that we need to work on seriously. The governing board brainstormed these priorities, but students really added on and showed us what we need to work on for this school year. So before I show you the photos from our retreat, I wanted to mention the Zoom meeting that I attended, where me and a few other board members researched and reviewed various aspects of companies that will soon be chosen to do the work for our upcoming superintendent. So I hope that the board would choose to be transparent with you and break down the information to share with the community so that you all know and is aware of what's going on. Now here are a few photos from our retreat. And now I will pass it to Director Simmons.
So to get into some all City Council events, Our middle school general meeting is coming up. This is a really inclusive space and a really safe space where middle schoolers can come and flourish into the leaders that they can be. This is where I started out. It's a really fun space. We learn about things like restorative justice, what a leader looks like, how to organize, how to find a problem in your school and prioritize, and how to really get rid of that problem without adult help or without adult supervision. And that is about it and that concludes our report for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have public comment on this agenda item?
Yes, Madam President, we have three. So Sada Olabala, Janelle Harris, and Ben Tapscott.
2 minutes each.
Some point to engage in conversation, and from your perspective, what are you looking for receiving that information? The other thing is for you to look at some of the legislative education bills that are being considered for signing by the governor. Some have been passed and some haven't, particularly 495, and I have some other ones in here that I'll discuss with the superintendent. But y'all need to look at some of these bills. You need to look at the literacy, financial literacy mandate that goes into effect next year and have some input on that. I would also encourage you to look at some of the public safety issues that the city is engaging in, particularly when we have what happened at Skyline. I'm very concerned about the process of staying in place when you're looking for a gun. And I don't know procedurally if that's the best recommendation, but evacuation procedures when there is a potential shooter, active shooter on the campus. So just a few things for you to consider, but I respect your decisions to prioritize whatever you think is best.
If I may, Madam President, there was an additional speaker, Sheila Haynes. Janelle Harris, since she's there, can go.
Thank you, youth directors. I wanted to touch on when you said you wanted people to build up the youth, and I agree. However, we must practice what we preach in this district, right? And I'm requesting that young people stand up and demand what you are entitled to when it comes to your education. Because clearly the display since you've been on this board or committee has not been what you expected. So I encourage you to speak up on the things that you see, that you won't tolerate, and that you expect from the adults around you.
All right, Madam President, Sheila Haynes is online with a hand raised. I can unmute them to speak.
Okay. And then we have Mr. Tapscott after that, right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I just want to thank the student board members for their special care and advocating for inclusion for students with disabilities and students who have faced trauma. It's critical that the push for inclusion for our students to participate in all that's available to them finally come to a point where they aren't consistently losing out on the consistency they need and deserve. So with that, I speak on the ongoing need for the district to not give any arts and music education. It's critical that our students be able to get all that's available to them, and keeping them in the most joyful spaces can be done with arts and music education. I just want to once again thank the board and also thank the student board for pushing for our kids to get inclusive services that they need. And hopefully keep hoping that we'll get to that point. And thank you.
Thank you.
Later on, we also had a focus meeting of our staff
our Professional Development Day, which was orientating our staff around combating hate speech, which was organized by the OUSD Office of Equity. And that action really actually underscored the district's commitment to ensuring our community schools are anti-racist and inclusive for the board's equity policy. I also had an opportunity to attend Crocker Highlands Elementary's centennial celebration, where there were many alums, former staff, and many dignitaries from the state that were in attendance. And most recently, last Friday, I attended the Oakland Adult and Career Education District 16 pre-apprenticeship graduation at the former Parker community site, which was really exciting to see so many adults who had taken the step to learn skills to be able to be hired for specific jobs. This work that we must do together as a community must be proactive rather than reactive. We need to plan with purpose rather than respond in crisis. There is much for us to hold as we take this walk together. And I want to thank the board, even with divergent ideas, divergent proposals. I want to thank them for working towards creating one voice by working together. I believe there should be one view, one Oakland. I also want to thank our staff for their dedication, our community for its continued engagement. I believe that together we have the opportunity to demonstrate, even in difficult times, that we can make thoughtful, responsible decisions that uphold our values and advance our mission. This community has a legacy of activism, a legacy of different ideas, and a legacy of the mission. The mission is to educate all students, pre-K through adult. That's our mission. We have to find a way, and people are working towards that. Again, my prayer and my hope is that we do this together as a community, as a board, as a staff, and as students who have definite voice around what their future will be. So tonight's action, everybody, is not the end of the conversation. We must continue to strive in our ongoing efforts to ensure that every decision we make, and there's work to do, but I want to reinforce that we ensure that every decision we make serves our students well today and lays the foundation for an even stronger tomorrow. Thank you. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Dr. Sadler. Are there public comments on this?
Yes, Madam President, we have 4. That's Sheila Haynes, Ben Tapscott, Sada Olambala, and Janelle Harris.
Okay, 2 minutes each. Can we start with Ms. Haynes, please?
Yes, I do see them online. I will allow Sheila Haynes to speak.
Hello?
We can hear you.
You can be heard.
Hi. So what our children hear and see and learn, it shapes their future as an adult. And then going over the superintendent's report, I love the fact that there's been conversations around hate speech. I fully support Dr. Superintendent Sadler as I came to know her as a principal at my son's last in-person school. Unfortunately, he's learning online, and he has been for over 5 years because there's no safe place for him. And at a time when he was getting over trauma from school closures, both emotional and physical, it was hard for me to have trust in staff. But the superintendent understood and always reassuring me he was safe. She worked with the former superintendent to avoid his school from being closed. So I asked for the board, I've asked before, that you adopt the compassion that the superintendent possesses. Too many students come from broken homes and their schools are their last hope to try and be in a loving space. So in looking at the report, I appreciate the conversations around hate speech, because the N word, the B word, R word, special needs, even homophobic language, it's a trigger for violence to occur. As my resolution asks for no hate speech along with arts and music education, it's critical that Oakland be the leader in banning hate speech altogether. And I'll have to say that I'm upset that Too Short has a street named after him, because decades of harm has been caused by the use of the B word. I also briefly looked at suspensions, and I also serve on the Black Suspensions Committee. So it's critical that the district do all they can to help our students be in the most loving and safest places. It would be a great start if there could be a ban of hate speech. And so thank you for your ongoing work, and all I have is hope that we can get there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Referencing the discussion on hate speech, the governor just signed two bills, AB 715 and Senate Bill 48. AB 715 is specific to the creation of a civil rights office that will deal with K through 12 schools issues related to anti-Semitic activity. SB 48 will establish 4 additional state departments for prevention of hate related to religion, racial, ethnic, gender, and LGBTQ discrimination. As it relates to your report on suspensions, it's important that we see that we've had little growth in terms of the 1%. It's almost the exact same number of African Americans being suspended. It's also important to present the number of by race special education students who are suspended, because it's going to be majority African Americans. It's also important with the enrollment numbers to look at the number of students who are enrolled who don't live in Oakland, out of the city, the number of students who are foster students, homeless students, and at some point we want to get a report on the number of students who are being expelled by race. Lastly, I would like to encourage you to please continue to look at enrollment at McClymonds. We have been the target of denying parents to enroll at McClymonds, and it started at the beginning of the year. We had to deal with it. With our school being no activity going on for remodeling, we being denied the opportunity to take in more students. We need to find out if you're going to actually do anything with remodeling. If not, open up the school so we can take in more students.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Thank you. I want to address the OUSD Staff Unite to Combat Hate Speech. I want to point out that the N word is commonly used at my school by the administration who works there and by most of the students. It is accepted by everyone. Having anti-Blackness in this district is not something new. We know that. Look at McClymonds, 100 years old and never been touched. We have mice eating our lunch food out of the refrigerator. They have now gotten into the refrigerator and nobody is doing anything. So I can appreciate the staff uniting. However, I'm going to challenge this board to ask for more. This little report back doesn't tell me anything of the work that has been done. Hate speech occurring around the schools is common, as you know. Fremont High School, they're writing it all over the walls. This board is old enough to know Jim Crow law, old enough to know it. I'm old enough to know it because I was born in 1970. The staff at McClyman are constantly using this word. It's content creation, from my understanding and from the videos I've watched by our staff who still are employed and represent OUSD. And I'm not going to tolerate it. I appreciate the fact that they've done this one-day anti-racist, whatever it was, but just as long as it took for our children to create a word that was so hateful and harmful to make it something that they're proud of and that they call themselves every single day is not acceptable. So I ask for more, Superintendent. I want to know what, when, why, how, and who. Thank you.
I appreciate your report, Superintendent. I have asked this question a number of times. What categories are the expansions so that you'll know what you're dealing with? Telling us that 55% of the suspensions were African American doesn't tell us what category. Is it fights? Is it insubordination is not a suspension. So we need to address the issues that principals are doing and find out what exactly is the issue. It could be they can't read. I mean, we've got a poor record when it comes to graduation. The fact that out of 10 seniors, only 4 can read above the 4th grade level. So what are we doing for 12 years if we can't get kids to read above the 4th grade level? You have heard me say there are 5,000 prisons in the United States. 50% of those incarcerated are African Americans that can't read. And we're not addressing it if we don't address the fact that they're not reading. I've said there are 18 low elementary schools that need help. Aguilera said there are 16. Well, I disagree. And those 16 schools should get a reading specialist in there. And there should be 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, and maybe once a month Saturday schools where they can take their child and get their reading level up. We couldn't graduate seniors unless they completed 32 hours of driver ed back in the day. They couldn't graduate without that. We shouldn't be having students graduate that can't read above the 4th grade level. So we need to look at that and address it. And Preston Thomas needs to be fired.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments?
All names for this item have been called.
Thank you. Are there board comments?
Yes.
Director Williams.
Yes.
Director Hutchinson.
No.
Director Thompson.
No.
Director Hutchinson, the General Counsel has the floor.
Yeah, extra careful. So I just want to point that what has been a part of the discussion for just about the bulk of the evening is the glaring absence of 2526 in the original resolution. And so this amendment that is now on the floor addresses 2526 with the amendment that is now there. And that is what I am stating on the record, that it does include components for 2526. This specific language, as I understand it, was also sent to our CBO, and she's here at the dais. So I'm gonna just turn it over to her.
So I just want clarification, because there was an exact phrase used, that language satisfies the county's September 12th letter. So I just didn't hear that part from what you just said.
Ms. Grant Dawson.
But no, I'm
Ms.
asking for,
Grant Dawson.
no, I'm asking for a clarification from General Counsel. You're not allowed to tell me no. There's specific language, and we
She
need to be,
answered your
no, she
question.
didn't. She did not say in her legal opinion that this satisfied the September 12th letter. That's all that I'm
She
asking. No, she
did.
didn't. She said
You're
that she
wasting
thought
time
this
right now.
mentioned 25, 26. That's very different than satisfying the specific letter we got on September 12th. So
Ms.
again,
Grant-Dawson.
General Counsel, I'm asking you, is it your legal opinion that that language satisfies the conditions in the county letter dated September 12th? It's a real specific question that I'm allowed to ask the General Counsel, and President Brohard, you can't stop that from happening. This is really
You're
important.
bullying the general counsel right now.
This
and I
is
would like to
really,
continue.
wait, I'm asking for a legal opinion from the General Counsel.
And she said that she
And
cannot
that's,
give you a
and
legal
that's
opinion on the
actually,
dais.
that's actually not a legal question, just to be clear. The county superintendent will respond as to whether this satisfies her. So that's not actually a legal question that you're asking.
Thank you, General Counsel. Ms. Grant-Dawson. Oh, sorry. Mr. Bellino. Excuse me. We have speakers.
As a former chief of staff to a county superintendent, I just want to affirm our general counsel's statements.
Thank you. Excuse me, that is really disrespectful to the General Counsel.
I'd like to confirm the general counsel's statements that the resolution includes 2526, and it is not up to anyone on the dais to decide whether that satisfies the county superintendent's requirements. It is the county superintendent who determines that. And so therefore you can't ask the general counsel to confirm whether or not it does so.
Thank you for that clarification. Ms. Grant-Dawson.
So just wanted to share with the board's process in writing resolution original and with all the amendments. What is missing and where I'm having concerns, again, is there some language that doesn't align and that, again, is either too restrictive or doesn't have the completeness of how we do business in a school district. And so I appreciate the components, but if the board can consider after this period of time, another way for us to, as other bodies do, legislatively clean up the language. We gotta clean up the language because there's some key areas that I'm concerned about operationalizing and providing recommendations. And so I just need to say that tonight, that somewhere in here, there's some pieces that we're gonna run into some walls. And that's again, because we have not walked through this process with having that time to work through the various resolutions and amendments. So I just want to point those points out so that subsequent to that, we're not having this feeling that the staff is coming back and rejecting or trying to block the board from doing something when ultimately, you know, we are trying to operationalize it, but some of the language is very concerning in the way that it's written and intent. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say.
May I ask Ms. Grant-Dawson, can you give an example that you identified in your comments? Just give us an example.
Yeah, I'll give an example of the current one that's on the screen. Sorry, I lost the screen. Okay, so the blue, be it further resolved, in order to maintain the 3% reserve for 25-26, direct the superintendent to institute a temporary, unrestricted general fund hiring freeze. Review vacancies, is that only in the unrestricted general fund or in all unrestricted and restricted, and propose additional unrestricted balance savings? There are positions that are funded by both sides. I know you know that. So to restrict it to just unrestricted means that if I have positions that are either multiple funded or that coincide with the unrestricted general fund position, as I shared before, we're looking at the through line of what programmatically would need to change. And I don't want to elapse more of your time because you don't have enough, but that's an example. There's places where it's super tight, and then there's places where it's really loose. I mean, I think we get the point that ultimately you want to reduce as many reductions from school sites as possible, right? I can see that in the iterations of this work. But you also said above that you want us to reach $100 million. And so with that component, you know, there's no language about, well, what if, you know, we'll provide the scenarios and if we can or can't. And then there's other points, that are raised that I think would be examples. It's just an opportunity for us to come back, and I don't know if that's meeting with the makers of the motion or what that would look like. But lastly, I would just say that what is also lacking is what the board is going to do to partner with us, because what this reads as now is staff task work. And I see nowhere where, and the board will not accept a staff recommendation on reduction of position, where the board will not reverse, because that is our reality too. So if we're going to speak truth to power and come back to November 8th with something, I really need the board to be able to consider those components as what we have experienced that does what we have done. And none of this we want to do, right? But truly, to just speak to our earnestness in wanting to do this work without it being upended when you're asking for a recommendation. Does that help, Superintendent, on an example? Okay, thank you.
So can I just ask you a question? So
Yep.
on this one, should we take out the unrestricted general fund?
Yeah, so at this point, I really don't want your time to lapse. My ask is that you come back with a process for us to legislatively go through the language,
Okay.
right? So it's kind of similar again to how, the state or city or county would do, and then we'll come back and clean
Okay.
up language, right? So,
Okay.
so there's a trailer bill action perhaps that we institute to work on different language components and then reset whatever the resolution is, if that's what we're doing.
And then I do want to address, and you said this, in our conversation as well, I think when the scenarios come back, that we really can't cherry pick them, so to speak. We can't say, we'll take a little of this and a little of that, that the things that come back to us come back in their entirety, that we address the scenarios in their entirety.
Thank you.
Madam President, may I? I'm just sorry. To my colleague, Ms. Grant Dawson, one more thing. Do you see any challenges with, if there's a focus on rewriting of the legislation, do you see any issues operationalizing it? I'm just trying to imagine the timeline. If the focus is on the rewrite, does that present issues for operationalizing by the deadline?
I don't necessarily think the rewrite. I mean, I think part of it is we get the intent, but then when you're writing a resolution, it is absolute, right? Especially depending on, what's written in the resolution. So I would say, yes, there's some operationalization that I see that is a challenge. It's late. That is a challenge, but I think that if we come back to, is this what you mean by this scenario, that's what helps us to understand the intent. So a sentence from the amendment that said that the district will let the board know when there's a change to expenditures. Well, we do that. So what does that mean? We do that in the interims. We update you about other changes. So what does that mean? Is that adding a layer of reporting or work to that? There's no context. So that's what, I wouldn't understand, and it wouldn't be easily inferred as to what that means as it relates to expenditures when we already have that process. It's already codified in your policy and what the district is required to do with its interim reports. So as an example, that's another one. What does that look like or mean? Without context, we wouldn't know, and we'd have to come back and ask. And that may mean a change in language, but it doesn't mean we couldn't operationalize it once we understood it, if that's a good example to provide. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
All right.
All right, I would like to call the roll on this, Mr. Rakestraw.
Wait, can I actually make one point, please? I'm just, if I think based on what your feedback is, Ms. Grant Dawson, I'm sorry, General Counsel, would you mind putting that up one more time? I just want to make sure that we're incorporating what we just heard, which was that I believe it's, you struck out unrestricted general fund, and I assume that we should also strike out unrestricted balance, the proposed additionals. Or maybe not. I just want to use,
Yeah, I think, again, at this point, my recommendation, leave it with the unrestricted, because I also could talk about the word temporary.
Okay.
Like, so
Okay.
what does
All
that
right.
mean? And, how long and what is temporary? So I would recommend you just leave it, and we can come back and clean it up. It would be my recommendation. Yeah.
Can we just confirm what that process is? Because I'm hearing that we don't have time, but now I'm hearing that we need more time. And so which is it? Do we, because right now we're being asked to vote on something that we're getting very clear feedback isn't ready. And yeah, I did assume that some of this conversation happened before tonight with Ms. Grant Dawson. And so is there time to do the work that is necessary to operationalize this? Or do we need time to get it right before we vote to establish something by way of legislation?
Okay, so it's 11:08, and we have to get to the consent items, and we have to get to the permits. I think that I would like just to ask to make sure that if we do have to vote tonight. So if we voted on this tonight, could we come back and work with you to clean it up or to discuss it? Is that?
Yeah, that's what we would have to do. We
Yeah.
would come back with questions about, here are the areas that we have questions about, and then we'll see if there's language or is it context that we just need to have a better understanding of.
Okay.
Because the language may be fine. It's what is it that we're trying to say and trying to achieve? That's what we're trying to get to.
And I just want to be clear, make sure I'm clear. You use the language legislative, right? So you are asking us to make sure that whatever calibration, whatever meaning comes by way of that calibration, that it is established as a part of the
Yes.
document.
Right, and can come back. That can come back with, here's what how we cleaned up the language, say November 8th, or the study session, that type of thing, if that's the result of when we get to do that. But there has to be some process to work on language so that we're clear and then we're not having conflicts later.
Thank you. Director Hutchinson.
Yes, thank you. This is the problem with not having stuff vetted ahead of time and wordsmithing it at the last minute. And you can't have it both ways. If it is going to need more work, then by definition, we are not approving a plan one by October 8th deadline. Let's see if this one's going to go. We got echo on that one. So this is what happens. Actually, this is what happens when the universe bends in our favor. But this is also what happens when directors don't get anything vetted ahead of time, and we try to wordsmith it at the last minute. And so to hear that this will need cleanup or more work, by definition, this means that this is not going to satisfy the county's letter, which says we have to vote on a plan and a timeline by tonight. And again, there was one resolution that was introduced that could have met it. Everything else hasn't met it yet because people insist on wordsmithing it at the last minute. So this won't satisfy the county's letter. It won't by definition. And I appreciate Ms. Grant Dawson's words. She speaks very carefully. And if you listen very carefully, that's what we just heard, that the language in this resolution is not workable, that we'll have to come back another time, but the county has told us this was our last time. So again, there's one opportunity to reconsider my original amendment and resolution. Otherwise, this won't satisfy the county, no matter if people vote for it or not.
I'm going to call the question.
On the question of the adoption.
Superintendent Sadler wanted to answer.
To suggest that, given that board sets policy and the staff does the admin regulations, that would be the normal process, that you would set the policy and then staff would come back with the administrative regs, the AR, which would give the details of how this would be implemented. So I think at this point, I'm calling for passing the policy and then staff come back with the regulation. I think that's what.
Thank you.
I think that's.
I'm going to call the question. Mr. Rakestraw, can you
Yes,
call
I
a
can.
vote?
I can call the roll. On the roll call to adopt the resolution as amended, Student directors are absent. Director Lotter,
Yes.
Director Williams,
No.
Director Hutchinson,
No.
Director Barry,
No.
Director Thompson,
No.
Vice President Batchelor,
Yes.
President Brohard.
Yes.
The motion is not agreed to. So I don't normally make comments, but you have.
I'd like to add an amendment to your particular resolution. So I would like to see that we actually temporarily freeze the reserves at 2% instead of 3. 3 is a board policy. 2 is the state requirement. So we actually freeze our budget at 2%. Pardon me? Okay, so I'll make a motion to reconsider the previous item.
Which item is that? Is the last one that just failed?
Yes.
I'll second
Yeah,
it.
you can make a motion to, can I get some more sheets, please? Motion to reconsider. And yeah, and who seconded it?
A point
President
of
Brohard.
clarification, Director Williams.
Motion to.
Is that a motion to reconsider with
Motion to
the amendment that
reconsider.
you've articulated?
Previous motion, hold on. Who moved it?
Director Williams moved it.
And Brohard seconded it. Okay, at this particular point, there's no debate on the reconsideration. It's either yes or no. Director Lotter?
Point of order. I believe there's also an amendment.
You can't make an amendment before you get the item back on the floor.
Correct,
It's
but
not
I
on the
just wanna-
floor until you actually vote reconsideration. Therefore, it's not subject to any amendments until such it's back on the floor. So on the up or down to put it back on the floor, Director Lotter,
Yes.
Director Williams,
Yes, sir.
Director Hutchinson,
No.
Director Barry,
Yes.
Director Thompson,
No.
Director Vice President Batchelor,
Yes.
and President Brohard.
Yes.
The motion to reconsider the previous question is approved. Did I get some sheets? Yeah, it just simply says that you now can bring up the prior motion as last made. Doesn't say anything else.
Okay, we'll start with this round, starting with Director Batchelor, Vice President Batchelor.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to brought back your resolution. I'd like to actually amend it by freezing the reserves at 2% instead of threshold of 3%. 3% is a board policy. 2% is mandatory. That will save us about $6 million through the end of the year. Right, that's true.
So what I'm hearing as the maker of the main motion is a waiving our board policy around the 3% reserve to make it a 2% reserve. Is that correct? That's a friendly amendment. Director Lotta, as the seconder of the motion, is that a friendly amendment?
Yes.
Is there any?
Yeah, I am this is probably the most unproductive thing I will say tonight, but I am just amazed at where collaboration happens and where it doesn't, where feedback is accepted and where it isn't, and that we'd be willing to shrink our reserve above all of the feedback that we heard and that was rejected tonight. I'm just naming it. Like it is I am reflecting live right now that I am amazed at that, and I'm disappointed. Like that's the best idea we came up with tonight to get a vote through. And I'm just disappointed.
Director Hutchinson.
Thank you, Director Barry. Sometimes it's very difficult here. I just want to reset where we are as a district in our finances. On the 45-day budget update, our reserves are down to 19 million. We have been told that we're overspending by 4 million a month, which is coming out of our reserve. So what in any sort of reality does changing whether we have a 2 or 3% reserve have to do with the fact we're going to be out of money before the end of the year, or the county's letter that tells us that we have to address that? It shows such an utter, complete lack of understanding of how our finances and budget even work. And so if anyone wants to propose changing the board policy that dictates 3% and just have the state requirement of 2%, they can. But also, if folks would have listened to Ms. Grant Dawson over the last 3 months, she would have already told you that we're not carrying the 3% anymore this year, and we're just down to the 2%. So the fact that at the end of the night, because people want to make sure they're trying to show they know something, that's what they come up with? Man, I'm embarrassed for everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oops.
May I also just add, I'm sorry to jump in, the 3% reserve is set by policy, and generally you amend policy to change policy, not through a resolution in this way. And so, it doesn't
General
actually
Counsel,
work
I heard a
towards the
waiving
goal.
of the policy, not a changing or a drastic shift of the policy.
You also can't waive it without notice, and you haven't noticed it either.
Thank you. And it's kind of a moot point now, but I did want to talk about 09, the hiring freeze. I was very surprised to see that included in the consent report. That is something that should have been voted on as a standalone item so it could be discussed and explained. And after listening to the conversation tonight where people had issues with a hiring freeze and those things, it's really shocking that there's actually a hiring freeze in the consent report that delineates which positions are exempt from that hiring freeze. So many of the questions that people were asking are actually answered there in the item on the consent report. But these are some of the many reasons why I stopped voting for the consent report 6 months ago. Where we are now was a very predictable end to the road that we've been on for way too long. And embarrassed is not even strong enough. It is shocking that even now, on the last day of the deadline for the county, we went around in circles. There was a resolution approved that doesn't satisfy the county's letter, and the next thing up is to go and approve a consent report with all kinds of spending in it. I hope everyone goes back and watches this video. There were a lot of directors exposed by their comments up here today, exposed by thinking that they can wordsmith something this important sitting on the dais, exposed for not understanding how things work, for not being prepared, and not following the process that's been established by law. When we lose local control, I expect resignations. And unfortunately, it might not just be from school board directors at this point. We have been failed by everybody, by a series of 4-3 votes like we saw tonight. The county should have stepped in months ago. So should have the state. So should have the attorney general. Where's any of our city council members or the mayor? Where's anyone? How dare these people destroy our district? How dare these people disenfranchise my community? How dare they throw out years' worth of work for us to get free after 22 years? And in 4 months, All of that's down the drain. This hurts our students, this hurts our staff, this hurts our whole community. And when I say hurt, we are talking about generational harm, because we ain't even recovered yet from the last time we were taken over. And when we run out of money and have to take a loan from the state, that puts us back in indefinite receivership. That if we have to cut another 100 million next year, how are we gonna pay off a state loan, ever? And that's before the feds cut $1 from us. That's before we negotiate a new contract with our labor partners. This is a complete failure. I've never seen anything like this board. And I mean, I'm disgusted to my soul. Thank you.
Are there any more comments on this agenda item? So I understand we're taking OP, and I do want to move along. We do want to end the meeting in honor of a very important member of our community, and Director Thompson does have something prepared for that. So if there are any other comments? Okay. Do you have a comment? Okay. Can we take, do you have a comment?
We have 7 minutes.
I know. Can we take a roll call vote on the items O? We're taking OP and T together. Is that what I understood?
Yes.
Okay, roll call vote on those.
All
please.
items listed there under.
Okay.
On the roll call to approve OP and T, all items inclusive. Student directors are absent. Director Lauder,
Yes.
Director Williams,
Yes.
Director Hutchinson,
Abstain.
Director Barry,
Yes.
Director Thompson,
Yes.
Vice President Batchelor,
Yes.
and President Brohart.
Yes.
Motion's adopted.
The last thing on the agenda quickly is an introduction of new legislation, which is item 25.
Can you hold on that for a moment?
Thank you. And with that, we're adjourning in the honor of Pastor J. Alfred Smith. And I know you have a couple of words for him.
Thank you very much, President Brohart. But we understand that the Reverend Dr. J. Alfred Smith was a great man of this Oakland community. He was a giant that stood tall socially, economically, politically, and educationally. He stood firm on the ground to make sure that all students had equal access. What makes me feel good is I get to stand in the shoes of a great man before me, because he represented District 7. From 1981 to 1984, he was our representative. I can go so far as to say I think he probably had a relationship with our great Dr. Marcus Foster. So he sort of knew him, and so he integrated his knowledge of Dr. Foster. One thing I can say, and I appreciate Dr. J. Alfred Smith for this, and I knew him personally also. He was a man that worked beyond politics. He did not posture behind politics. He allowed the values that I feel are so important, the values of ethics and transparency, to always be a part of who he was. So everyone knew that this great man stood firm on the foundation that there's an ethical principle that should guide his being. So that's my words for the Reverend Dr. J. Alfred Smith for this evening. Thank you very much for this time.
Thank you for those eloquent words.
Thank you, sir.
And with that, the meeting is adjourned.